Okay, let's get started. My name is Eric Gross, and I am pleased to be moderating this year's Deerfield Candidates Night. A big thank you goes to our PTO and to DCS for organizing this important event, which provides us all an opportunity to learn more about our candidates' motivations and positions. All candidates who filed for a town or school district office by the February 1, 2019 deadline were contacted by DCS PTO and given the opportunity to participate in this forum. All candidates may present themselves at this forum, whether or not they are in a contested race. Not all candidates are at tonight's forum, but we are pleased to have, looks like we'll have maybe a dozen or so in front of us. So our process will be as follows. We will start with candidates for the town positions first. And I think we have 7 or 8 of those. And then we will go through and then we'll move to the school race. All candidates vying for an open position will be presented at the same time. So all 8 candidates, irrespective of what position they've put in for, will be before you. Each candidate will be given up to 3 minutes to introduce him or herself and then to express to the community why he or she is running for this office. 3 minutes. Candidates should please limit your comments to yourself as a candidate. As this is not a debate format, please do not digress to discussion about another candidate or to an unrelated topic. At all times, comments must be respectful of others, present or absent. A 30-second warning will be given at the 2-minute 30-second mark, and at the 3-minute mark, I ask that you please quickly finish your thought. I will curtail candidates as appropriate for time and for content. Following the introductory speeches, the floor will be open to questions from the community. If you would like to ask a question of any or all of the candidates, please raise your hand and I will acknowledge you in turn. Please rise, stating your name and address, and ask your question loudly and clearly so that all may hear. Please, I ask questioners to refrain from introductory commentary, as we only have so much time this evening to get through all the candidates. And when you're done asking your question, you may sit. Similar to the candidates, I ask that you please make all your questions respectful of others at all times. I will cue the respondent or respondents working down the table as appropriate. Responses will be limited to 2 minutes, and again, a 30-second warning will be given. Does anybody have any questions about how this will work tonight? We hope to be completed no later than 8:30. So are we ready? Okay. So all the town office candidates, please find a chair at the front table. And it would be helpful to me if you are near or next to your candidates for the same position. But if not, that's fine. So I'm just going to run down the list that I have of candidates who are here and just indicate what offices they're going for. First, Frederick McGarry and Herman Pretorius are going for the Board of Selectmen. There are 2 openings for 3 years. There are actually 6 on the ballot. And I also have a statement given to me that I will read for Richard Pittman, who's also going for Board of Selectmen. Yes. I'm not. Joanne Waring, trustee of the trust fund. Jane Miller, trustee of the Philbrook James Library. Water Commissioner Ryan Stenger. Is that correct pronunciation? Stenger. Stenger. Very good to know. Thank you. Frances Maureen Quinn, going for the position of supervisor of the checklist. And have I missed anybody? Oh, Alden. Sorry. Your name? Michael Dumont. Do we have a placard for Michael?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Right here.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for helping. So I think what we'll do is we'll just start at this end of the table and we'll allocate 3 minutes for introductory commentary. So, Mr. McGarry.
I want to thank the DCS and PTO for setting this up tonight. Very helpful to get an opportunity to express your opinion. My wife and I moved to Deerfield in 1972, and we loved the town then, and we still love the town now. I'm a registered professional engineer, and as such, I felt that it would be beneficial for me to donate my knowledge and experience to activities in the town. I've served as health officer on the Conservation Commission, the Bicentennial Ball Field Committee, the Solid Waste Committee, also served on the Budget Committee and the Planning Board, and now I'm running for re-election on the Board of Selectmen. One of the major concerns that certainly I have as a member of the Board of Selectmen is with regard to the police station. The police station we currently have is inadequate and really needs to be replaced. There's been a committee that has worked with regard to locating a police station. In fact, there's a item on a warrant article to raise money for a study with regard to obtaining engineering plans and also architectural plans for the police station. I certainly urge people to vote for that. Without replacing the police station, we run the risk of potential lawsuits because of the inadequacy that we have at the police station itself. And that's my major concern right now, and I hope to have your votes in March.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McGarry. Mr. Dill.
Hi, my name's Alden Dill. Family and I live over on Griffin Road. We moved to town 6.5 years ago from Northwood. 2 kids that attend DCS here. Before I moved to town, I served 2 terms as a Board of Selectmen in Northwood and a term on the Planning Board. I was chair for 3 of those years. on the board, and also served on the Highway Advisory Committee for 6 years in Northwood. I've been on the NBC for 2 years here in Deerfield. And I did run for selectman last year. It was quite a crowded race for one seat, but I thought I'd well enough, we got to toss a hat back in the ring again this year. Mostly I'm running, I work in the farm full time, so I'm in town all day, every day, which I find helps. You know, I worked in Northwood when I was a selectman there, and most of the town employees, you can watch them work and get to know them, find out what the issue is for that day, especially with the highway crew. They're in town at the same time. I do support the police station. Last year we were all up here talking about the fire station. It's a small town. We only have 3 major departments that complain about the sewage. Either fire department, police, highway or police. This year it's the police station. I do think we need to expand it. I thought the community did a great job picking the location. The other thing we have to work on is we've had some really haphazard road repairs. We've been throwing money at just fixing things that are falling apart. We have to get a plan in place and a road audit for what needs to get fixed and where we're at. We've done a few big sections of road lately, but we have a lot of roads in town, like not even roads, pretty heavily trafficked pieces that's falling apart. But other than that, I've had the job before, I enjoyed it, and I think I did a good job.
Thank you, Mr. Dill. Mr. Dumont.
Hello, my name is Mike Dumont, and family I been living in this town almost 4 years now. And I'm a meat carpenter. I work pretty hard, and I'm sure a lot of you here work pretty hard, and have worked pretty hard. Year after year, you just see just some of the things that the town wants to do, and I feel that maybe I can contribute something by trying to run for selectmen and maybe help out my way and help the town on the right track and do the right things. And I see a lot of things that they want to try to fix for today, but not thinking about like the future and what do we do 10 years down the road and how are we going to fix that. And for example, the police station, they want to build a new police station. I mean, what's next? We need a fire department, we're going to need a town hall. I mean, we're not really, I don't see us setting ourselves up expanding to the future at the rate we're going now with the way some of the things we want to spend our money on and raise taxes for it. And I can get out there and help maybe try to set this town up to bring it to the future and hopefully have the right ideas. And I haven't done this before, so I'm kind of just getting out there and doing it and seeing what happens and how it goes. And go Bulldogs, I guess.
Thank you, Mr. Dumont. Mr. Pretorius.
Hi, it's all right. Stand. Hey, my name's Herman Pretorius. My wife and I and our 3 kids live on Greenfield Road. We've been there. I just got very good there. So a little bit about me. I've been serving on the NBC for about a year. It's been a great experience. I've been an active member there. There's, it kind of blows my eyes to a lot of the new dynamics that are happening in this town. It got me really thinking about this position. I think one of the things that I started to realize the most, especially if you take a look at this crowd, right? If you look at the median age of this crowd, it's an issue, right? The median age is 40s, maybe even higher, right? So, and if you look at the people that are coming into this town, they tend to be younger families. You look at the Bloomfield development where I live. You look at some of the other developments going on in Middle Road. I think that I'm a good representation of the people that are doing it. I don't work on a farm, this is a rural town. It's not, I don't say that in a negative thing at all. This is an agricultural town. What I do for a living is I work for the government. I'm a scientist for the government. And I think there's a lot of new young families looking to move to this town. I think this town provides a unique there's a unique character to this town that I think attracts a lot of people. And we do have challenges. There's no question that the police station coming up in a couple of years, we're investigating that. That's something that we're going to have to think good about. Same thing with even the school. That's something that gets overlooked. It's a topic that comes up, quite a bit in the NBC and certainly on the school board. But there's a lot of infrastructure that we need to reinvest in the school before it's too late. We have to keep up with the building that's aging. So I do think I bring an interesting perspective to the town. I'm excited to be running. I'm excited to potentially be a good representation. And I'm grateful for every vote that I get. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pretorius. Ms. Miller.
So, I am Jenny Miller, and I'm old, and I grew up in Deerfield. And I'm running for the Board of Trustees of the Philadelphia Library. I remember going there as a little girl, but it was open on Saturdays, only once in a while. And I am delighted with the progress that's been made over time, and it has now reaching out to so many people in town, and I feel my reason for running is that I want to see the progress continue. It should be an open, friendly place for everybody in the community. And I think that's the direction it's going, and I hope to continue that.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Mr. Stenger.
Hi everyone, my name is Ryan Stender. I've been in Deerfield for about 4 years now, and I'm running for water commissioner. Currently going to school at NHTI for IT networking, so I don't have as good a story as the rest of the people here. I thought this would be a great way to get involved with the town in one of these smaller jobs, but I'd be excited to see what other positions I can pick up later on. Oh my God, okay.
Great, thank you. Mrs. Ware.
My name is Joanna Wary, and I'm running for trustee of the trust fund. Basically, that's a job that oversees the management of the town's reserve accounts, trust funds. So it's more of a management, just oversight type of a job. It's not having to make a lot of decisions as far as policies. So a little about my background is I do have a bachelor's degree in business from California State University at Northridge. I majored in finance and real estate, so I have some finance experience. I worked in the business world for a couple of years until I became an air traffic controller, and I did that for retired a few years ago. And so I think I'm a pretty good fit, or at least I understand the finances as far as investment of money. And I'm also currently I'm a supervisor of the checklist, which is just another way that I think I can get involved in the town. Since I'm retired, I have some time to do these things now. That's that.
Thank you. Mrs. Quinn.
Hi. I want to thank the PTO for hosting this event tonight, and thank you everyone for taking the time out of your evening to come and listen to it. I'm Maureen Quinn. I have lived in Deerfield for about 10 years. I love the town and really feel that it's important to be involved in the community where you live. So this running for supervisor of the checklist is a way for me to get back to a town that I really enjoyed being a part of. Professionally, I come to this position sort of in a different field. I have a 30-year nursing career. I was a commissioned officer in the U.S. Public Health Service, worked with the federal government for that time, and learned the value of being a public servant and the importance of well-functioning democracy and a smoothly functioning government. I see my role as supervisor of the checklist as, ensuring the accuracy and currency of the town voter rolls to make sure that all eligible voters who wish to vote are given the information and the opportunity to exercise that right. I think it's important that the supervisors of the checklist educate either new voters or people who have just moved into New Hampshire about the voter laws, and people have the information they need to be able to vote. And also to educate folks who are current voters about changes in laws. We've certainly seen an influx in voter laws recently. I also see our role as, supporting the town's free and fair elections, and I commit to serving the residents of Deerfield, and in particular the voters of Deerfield, to the best of my ability and with pride for our community. I have been in the role of supervisor of the checklist because I filled a vacancy that came up last April. So I'm familiar with the duties and I've been performing those duties since that time. So since nobody's running against me, I hope I get the
Great. Thank you, candidates. We will now take questions from the audience.
You're gonna read the
Yes.
question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. So this is from Dick Pittman. My name is Richard Pittman, and I am running for re-election as selectman of Deerfield. My wife, Pat, and I have been taxpayers for the past 32 years. Over the years, I have served on the Select Board, Budget Committee, as well as the Planning Board as Selectman's rep. I am also past president and director of the Pleasant Lake Association. I am committed to keeping this town an attractive and vibrant place to live and raise a family. I'm a New Hampshire native and was raised in Hollis, graduated from UNH with a degree in business and animal science. I have been in the construction industry 42 years and own and operate Center Hill Barns in Chichester, New Hampshire. I'm also on the executive board of the Concord Hospital Trust, which is the philanthropic arm of Concord Hospital. This past year, $4.1 million was given to the less fortunate that do not have health insurance in the greater Concord area. As a business owner and builder of agriculture buildings, I am committed to keeping the agriculture and small town feel to our community. I am an aggressive problem solver and open to anyone who wants to call me and express their ideas and feelings or who needs help solving a town issue. Going forward, I would like to see a new police station in order to keep our officers safe as well as our community which they protect. It's always been my #1 priority to keep the town property taxes as low as possible and still meet the needs of the community. I think my experience and knowledge of the interworkings of the town will allow me to be an effective choice for a selectman. I would appreciate your vote on March 12th. And there's a nice picture. Okay, now we will take questions from the audience. Who would like to pose a question to one or more of our candidates? Yes.
Ken Heckman, Pleasant Hill Road. This question is for the 4 candidates for selectmen. Some of you have alluded to looking forward to the future, thinking about it. We've all mentioned the police station, but can you go into a little bit more detail about the role of future planning? We do have a master plan that does need to be updated. I just like to hear your thoughts on the bigger picture, not just the school or improvements or a police station, but the next level of that.
Thank you. So this is a question to all 4 of you. Mr. McGarry, would you like to start?
Yeah, certainly the police station is the primary concern currently. We also have a problem with regard to the fire station. And the question will end up being whether we take and add on to the existing fire station to be able to take and accommodate some of the fire trucks that may end up ordering in the near future. Or the possibility of adding on to the police station to make it a total safety complex. So quite a few communities end up doing that. The big thing that we'd have to do as part of the planning would be make sure that the facility for the police station, if the intent is to add the fire station, would be such that it's designed so it can easily accommodate an addition, which would be a fire station. You correctly noted that the master plan is somewhat out of date, and that's something that's going to have to be considered probably next year. Currently, we have the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission working on the development of a capital improvement plan, and hopefully we'll have information on that coming up fairly soon. And for those who don't know, the capital improvement plan is planned such that it's talked to all of the department heads and come up, we'll get through in a second, and come up with recommendations of what major capital projects they need to have done, and then be able to take and space these projects out so they don't all hit this at the same time and affect the tax rate.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dill.
Fred covered a lot of it. I did work on the master plan update in Northwood as the Board of Selectmen's planning board rep. I've been through it. It's quite a process. It involves a lot of long nights and a whole lot of paper. I think the next step for the fire department in town is not a fire station. I think we're the only town around here without full-time firefighters. We're the only town without our own ambulance. And we were at a baseball game this summer, and a woman broke her ankle down at the bottom of bicentennial field. And a couple people from town said, we ought to just put her in a car and get her to Concord. We could ask for her. And I was like, no, we have that ambulance we see running around town all the time. And it blew me away that I'd say 3/4 of the people there didn't know that we are reliant on Raymond for ambulance services. It took 45 minutes for the ambulance to come in and pick the lady with broken ankle off the baseball bat. And it really surprised me how few people in town know how we're set up here. Especially, I live on the Epsom corner of town, so I just felt they responded first, rather than waiting for Raymond to come 45 minutes to come get me. But I think that's the next move we have to make, is not a fire station or a safety complex, but I think we're going to have to take a look. We've grown a lot since we signed our contract with Raymond. We get a great deal with Raymond, but we have to balance. We have a whole lot more people than we used to, and Raymond does as well. And to rely on them to come and do our ambulance service, I think, is getting a bit outdated. And I'm about to get the 30-second flag. So that would be my take on it.
Mr. Dumont.
Yeah, a lot of what they said, you look around this town is pretty outdated by, I mean, what's the newest thing we got at school, and it's 30 years old. I mean, how long before the school's gonna be redone, and how much is that gonna cost? I mean, it'd be great to have a new police station, but by the time we'll be paying for that, and how long before we will need a fire department, not just to add on to one, just keep putting a Band-Aid over it. And it's like the town hall, you know, that building, how long before that is just unusable? I would think we need to look more towards having a big safety complex, something that bring our town at least up until 2000, whatever, we ever get that. Bring the whole town up to date, not just bring the police department up to date, and then think about the fire department in 5 years, and then another 5 years, and then we're still juggling around and trying to figure things out. And in the meantime, the town has to grow. If we're not growing, we're just gonna keep taxing the taxpayers, and people are gonna start moving here, and it's actually gonna have a reverse effect. People are gonna start wanting to come here, and property values will drop, and I mean, we'll be in the same boat in 20 years where nothing will actually get done, but we'll have an outdated police station again, and we'll still be talking about the same thing in 10, 20 years. How are we gonna fix this problem?
Thank you. Mr. Pretorius.
Thank you for your question. I think investing in capital improvement projects around town is critical. And I think there's fundamentally 3 pillars to that question. I think there's sustaining the growth that this town's experiencing. A lot of that is reflected in the need for a new police station, a new safety complex, where that includes a fire station, right? I think we need to consider that, because if you look at how quickly this town's been growing in the last few years, I think you have to consider that. That has to be a parameter in how we evaluate that growth. I think the second fundamental pillar is the maintenance of the existing buildings, right? So the school is an example of that, and it has a foot in either pond. And what I mean by that is this is an aging building. There's concerns about the roof.
you know, as part of maintenance. And then there's also concerns about how many more kids can we fit in here, right? So there's a state recommended student to teacher ratio. Well, you know, we're gonna start running out of room, and we're gonna have to, where are we gonna put kids? Whether they're gonna expand the building, or whether, you know, we're gonna put trailers on the outside to support extra classrooms. That's an important question to answer as well. And I think the third pillar is the preservation of our identity, right? So we have a lot of really old, really beautiful buildings here. Like, this town is incredibly old, and that's part of its identity. And we really need to consider how we maintain those buildings and how we allow access to those buildings for everyone. And I think those are the three pillars.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for town candidates?
Kevin Burville. So I'm certainly sympathetic to the comments made by Mr. Dill relative to road quality in Deerfield direction. I think we share the opinion of which direction they're going in. It's something I've been trying to nibble away at for several years. So I guess if you're elected selectman, you know, what is your concrete plan of action to try to move the ball forward? That would be my question for Mr. Dill, since he brought it up, and I'll ask the three candidates. Do you share Mr. Dill's position? And if so, what would be your solution to that growing problem?
Thank you. Mr. Dill.
Okay. When I was in Northwood, there was a combination between Southern New Hampshire Planning and UNH we had a contract with them to get a road audit, which I think is where we need to start. We need to find out what we have in town and what the conditions of those roads are. We had a highway advisory committee that was my favorite committee in town. It was full of a bunch of old guys who would get together and meet and write to the road agents. It was a lot of fun, so we'll answer. We don't have one of these in town. Might want to look into that and work with the road agent to figure out what the priority is on those roads. And that road audit is really where we have to start, rather than just putting a lump sum towards road repair and catching up. We've got to find out where we are right now. We have a lot of roads in this town. We're geographically the largest town in the country. So that's what yeah. The county of Deerfield, we're a whole new county. Deerfield being the largest town. So that's where I'd like to start.
Okay. I'm going to start at the other end for a follow-on. Mr. Pretorius, do you agree with Mr. Dill's position, or do you have any other ideas?
So I certainly think road construction is a top priority in the town, and identifying what the priority is. And this is a conversation that we had in the NBC with the road agent, in fact. I tried to advocate the NBC allotting him more money to address the grading conditions of our road. I know the road that you're on, and you've expressed this interest a few times. I'm off of South Road, which seems to get patched on a every other day basis. So the road conditions aren't great. And my concern is that the road agent is not addressing the conditions of the road fast enough that they degrade by the time he moves back around. So either we need to help him step up, or we need to really look at outsourcing that work on small stretches of road to other companies that might have the ability to address those issues. I do think it's a safety hazard. I think it's a detriment to the value of this town by having some of the roads in the condition that they are. You know, Middle Road is a great road that's not paved, but that isn't the condition of all non-paved roads in this town. So I definitely think it should be a priority, and we should address it by working with the road agent or helping him outsource, or helping him to convince him to outsource.
Mr. Dumont, your position on this topic?
I agree. Yeah, but I don't think the condition of the road that actually warrants them getting fixed or everything. Nottingham Road, I noticed they paved one half of it was actually in better condition than the half they didn't pave, so that kind of doesn't make sense to me. So, I mean, this is New England, you get the hard winters, hot summers, and keeping up with the roads is gonna be, we're gonna be behind the eight ball regardless of what we do. But we obviously have to spend money on them and keep them updated, and kind of some of the money you see the town asking for on the ballots, it's like, well, why don't we take that money instead of dumping it into, say, an elevator or something, maybe throw it towards the roads. It's out going nowhere quickly, and it's, every year it's gonna keep, what should we do, what should we do, what should we do? And every year we're gonna, oh, we can do this, we can do that, and every year it's gonna be another year. While they're gone, and, yeah.
Okay, Mr. McGarry, your perspective on the roads.
We did have at one point an advisory committee that was surveyed all the roads in town. That probably dates back to probably into the 80s, so it's pretty old. So I think I agree with Alden about reestablishing an advisory committee and then evaluate the roads section by section and come up with a recommendation as to the approach to be taken on repaving it. Typically, DOT uses or attempts to use a 10-year cycle. So every road would have to be repaved once every 10 years. And to be honest, I don't know what type of cycle we currently have. I'm a cyclist and ride around town quite a bit, and there definitely are sections of Nottingham Road and South Road too that are in really bad shape, and it certainly could be evaluated to see whether or not we can take and add to the budget to be able to do that construction.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for the candidates? Yes.
My question for you is where, should you win in this post, would you continue on as supervisor at the checklist?
Yes, they're not considered incompatible, so I can't serve on both.
Thank you. Oh, yes. Please state your name and your address, please. And speak loudly.
My name is Dana. I go to this school. A couple of the issues about the school were previously stated. I was wondering if any of you had any other ideas about what the biggest issues about the school was, and if you guys had any ideas on how to fix that.
I'm thinking that that's a question for the next round.
Yeah.
The school ballot, okay? So hold that one, okay? Great. Thank you. Are there any other questions for the town candidates? Going once? Yes, Mr. Dealey.
Just a quick question. I don't believe anybody who's running for planning board is up there, am I correct?
Right.
And we have multiple positions open in planning board, one of which is uncontested. A lot of the planning that you guys have been talking about is driven from that committee. How, as selectmen or as new town officials, would you work to find people to fill that space? Because a lot of the capital improvement plan, the master plan is driven out of the planning board. And right now we have multiple open positions. Just, I would ask that of the folks who are running for selectmen.
Okay. We'll start with Richard Dumont on that.
Why not us? We're not elected, why not you fill it?
Mr. Pretorius?
Sure. So fundamentally, that's one of the reasons that I'm running, is I find that there isn't a lot of young families that are participating in town politics, and it's causing these kind of vacancies. And I think, not that any not that I have an opinion that anybody on the, Board of Selectmen currently, or any other town elected office is doing a poor job. I think that everybody's doing a great job. But I don't think that people that are of my age, in their 30s, maybe young 40s, feel represented necessarily by the people that are on those boards, right? And so I want to make sure, and I fundamentally believe that the presence of someone that people can relate to on the Board of Selectmen will potentially draw more people to not have this problem. So I don't know how to address the issue. I'd be willing to put someone's sign at the end of my driveway, but I think that it has to be a fundamental shift in youth families in the town.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McGarry.
We have two people who are running writing candidates for the planning board, two appointed positions. Bob Cody is running a writing candidate for the one-year term, and he's currently on the planning board, and will mess up with not signing up. And similarly, Bill Perrin, who's also on the planning board currently, is running a writing campaign for the two-year term. The three-year term is Pete Schibel, who is the current chair. He's already signed up, and apparently he's unopposed.
So writing campaigns for planning board do work. That's how I started in Northwood with 2 votes. I beat somebody. I think there were a couple people with 1 vote, but I got 2. So it does work. Planning board is one of the toughest boards I've ever served on. I was right at the beginning of real estate growing out. I had some nights like 1 and 2 in the morning when I was getting home from planning board. But like Herman said, I couldn't believe when there was a post on the Facebook page about it. People were like, well, what does that board do? And I was really surprised how few people know that there's a planning board or what the planning board does. So like I said last year, we're in a weird spot here. We have the forum, but we get no coverage from any other newspapers. We're in kind of a lull. We got to get the word of what's going on in town out more than just during the election. So I think that would be part of it. We got to let people know what the trustees of trust funds do, what the planning board does, et cetera. We have all these boards that are running, but we need to keep people on. So I think that would be my story. Getting the word out on what they do. School stuff does pretty well because a lot of the weekends have people, kids in school, but the town faced by the wayside.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for our town candidates? Yes.
Eric Berg on 9M Road. This issue, Jim started with, we also talked about volunteerism and running for offices. So I have a question for the select board folks. You folks, if you're elected, who are the chief responsibility organizations for this town? And so many volunteers are required for this town. We still have an issue. Never having enough volunteers. So I would ask you, each of you, what would you do to encourage volunteers, to educate them, to get something going? Not just, someday we'll do this, but put a focus on what would you do? Then I'll start with your idea.
I'm going to start with Mr. Dill on this one.
One thing I really like about Deerfield is we have community events, much more so than some of the other towns. We have Old Home Days still, which I love. I think we have awards in town, but I think we should recognize volunteers and boards at Old Home Day somewhat. I think it goes right back to what I was just saying. We need to let people know what's going on in town, who's on the boards. So recognition goes a long way on that. But I am glad I live in a town that still has community events. We don't draw everybody, but like this, I think is a pretty good draw. Old Home Day is a pretty good draw. We're never going to get everyone in town, but I think we're doing better. That would be my quick one.
I have a quick follow-up.
Yes.
You came from Northwood. Welcome to Deerfield. But I've heard good things about what Northwood has done to encourage volunteers.
We did have, so they started the People Bash right after we left, but I don't think that was a feeling of old home day. I think it was together. We did have quite a bit of recognizing long-term volunteers in town. We were lucky to have some people that had served on boards for a long period of time. We have plaques that we give out. And we did the same for employees. We really wanted to make sure we kept employees that had been in town a long time and we recognized them. So we had, and Deerfield does as well, they had bonuses for X number of years, plaques, recognition. We also, the selectmen put on a potluck dinner, potluck lunch a couple times a year at town hall. That's like 30 seconds to follow up. So I think we're doing a decent job. We could definitely do better, but I think we're doing better than some.
Mr. McGarrett.
Having served on the planning board for over 30 years, and knowing how difficult a time it is to get volunteers, we've had advertised numerous times to get alternates to the planning board, and it's almost impossible to get people to show up. With regard to answering Eric's question, I guess probably get as many methods of the communication out to advertise whatever positions that are available to be filled. We do have quite a few people who do volunteer. We were just going through and signing off on people being appointed to the Parks and Rec Commission and the various other positions as well. Again, it's very difficult to get people to be able to volunteer because a lot of people are real busy and really have a difficult time putting the time in.
Mr. Pretorius.
Sure. I don't know if I'm going to say anything profoundly different or overly true. I think that, you know, the advertisement and the way that we get the message across is crucial important. For example, I'm not on Facebook, so if any of you guys post on Facebook, you know, and oftentimes some controversial things I've heard that get posted on there, I'm not aware of them. And I'm happy that I'm not aware of them. So you know, if there's a rec league that's starting and it's aware on Facebook, I'm not aware of it. You know, I'm not sure what the right I don't know if Deerfield has the right mechanism to communicate new events to people. You know, I live on the southern end of Deerfield, so posting something up underneath the town, you know, on the big white sign underneath the town hall doesn't really do me a whole lot of good, right? So if there is, you know, this school sends out a newsletter once a week that I find helpful. I find out when my kids have hot dogs at school. But if there was something that was like that, where it was sent out to the town of upcoming events, you know, we have one of the biggest attractions in New England happens here at the end of August, right? I mean, there's people know about Deerfield. People know about it, or end of September. I'm sorry. People know about Deerfield, right? People know we're here. There should be no reason that we can't attract more Deerfield people to participate locally and neighboring towns. It seems like a trivial thing to do, and I oftentimes think that that's probably the biggest hurdle that we have.
Mr. Dumont.
Yes, we gotta get the word out there, and a lot of it is time. The younger people, the families, they don't have time, obviously. See, I can bring my entourage with me. Straight from work, right to here, kids. A lot of it, they don't want to be bothered with it. I mean, they just want to do their part, just pay the taxes, and that's it. Leave me alone, you guys figure it out, or maybe they get discouraged, they don't think they can help. Mostly just encourage them to get out here and get out here and help us. Get it going. Nothing helps you if you're not going to be involved.
Okay, thank you. I'd actually like to open up the question to the rest of the candidates to see if they have any ideas about how the word might be spread.
Looking forward to the library, and I think that would be an excellent place to encourage people to come and see and also share information. So that would be my information.
I feel like they've covered most of the best ways to get the word out. I don't have any secret idea about those that's going to.
No, like biplane
For me, I was like a lot of people, I worked shift work, nights, weekends, holidays, midnight shifts, and so I was typical of, I don't have time, and I never really, I lived in Londonderry before we moved up here, and working, being on a town committee never even crossed my mind. You knew people were doing it, but I never thought about it, and even once I moved to Deerfield, I still didn't think about it, and I retired, I had time on my hands, but all of a sudden, I got a letter from the supervisors of one of these 30-day letters, and the first word I said to my husband was, "What is a supervisor of a checklist?" I had no clue what it was, and never even paid attention, and so that's what got my attention for the job, and when the election was coming up in a couple of months, and kind of did a little research as to what the job was, and I told my husband, I can do that, so I signed up to do it. But when you're working, it is hard, especially if you're working shift work, but it's very difficult for people when they are working full-time to commit. Some of them like the planning board. Unless you have a lot of time, I know that's a time-consuming kind of a position, and you're selected. Having to commit every Monday, plus, what other else time, it's a lot of commitment. But, so it does help when you are retired or you do have a work schedule allows it, but some of the jobs I'm gonna get, most people in town don't even know they exist. Like, I didn't know what a supervisory checklist was. And then this came up, and I'm like, I still got some time on my hands, so I'm putting my money in half of this one. So I think it's just people, somehow the word does have to get out, and I think people know that these jobs are being out there.
So, the only thing that I can really think of is, if we could have some sort of a town information event where it's almost like when you go to a job fair or, like when schools come to, colleges come to a high school and they have stations where the students can go and talk to people from different colleges. If we had, like, not even just the planning board and the supervisors of the checklist and the select board or whatever, but even some of the volunteer groups in town, like the women's club or, just different entities. Like I know that there's a group that works to raise money for the school. I can't remember the name of it, but I know they do really wonderful things. And I'm just like, wow, I don't even know what they do or when they meet or any of that kind of thing. And if we had, something where people could come and just get information about different entities in town, and at least it would help them to be aware and maybe consider volunteering.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for our candidates? Okay, I think we're wrapped up for the town side. So we have several school candidates. If they could please come up to the front table, that would be great. So in the center, so everybody can see you.
I wanted to add.
All right, excellent. So we have 5 candidates for several positions in the school district. We have 4 candidates for the school board. 2 are for a position that's a 2-year term, and the other 2 are for a position that's a 3-year term. And then Julie O'Brien is going to go again for school district clerk. Pardon? Well, I'm not the moderator. Right, so we have, starting from the right here, Georgianne Gigi Cliffa, Kevin Burville, Nate Oxnard, and Layla Thompson. Gigi and Layla are up with Eric Cady for the 2-year position, and Kevin and Nate are squaring off with the 3-year position. So, like with the town candidates, we'll start at this end. You have 3 minutes for an introduction and a statement of your interest and your position.
Well, thanks for coming out tonight, and thank you to the PTO for sponsoring this. I just think that we can put such bases and meetings together. I have come to make the decision to run for school board because I feel like I have kind of a very unique perspective. I have lived in the town since 1987. Both my kids graduated from DCS and then from Concord High. During that tenure, I had been the assistant principal of Deerfield Community Schools for 7 years. I've been in education. I'm a little afraid to admit how long it's been. I did the math the other day. I think it's 37 years. My background started out in health and wellness, so I've been a teacher. I taught for a really long time. And what's a wonderful thing is I've brought my career full circle, and I'm back in the classroom now at a career tech center teaching high school kids that want to go into education. So I feel like it was a good time for me to get back into being able to serve my town in a volunteer capacity. I had not been on the board for a really long time. Many years ago when I first moved to town, I had been on the Parks and Rec Commission. And obviously, working here is different than serving in the community in a volunteer capacity. And so I thought that I could bring that kind of unique perspective of having been a parent of students that went here, of bringing my background in teaching and also my background in administration to the task. I hope to be a good listener. I think listening is really important. As I said in my bio that I wrote for the forum, I'm not holding any specific positions, just want to figure out how I can really keep kind of a community and school, that's important. And I'm hoping that, I think that public education is the underpinnings of our democracy. I think it's really important.
Thank you. Mr. Burville.
Kevin Burville, running for school board. Yet again, I've lived in Deerfield coming on 10 years in September. I've been involved in public life in Deerfield since the time I moved here. Served on the Open Space Committee, I was a trustee of the trust fund. I served many years on the municipal budget committee and on the steering committee, most recently on one of the state reps on Congress. My children go to DCS. I'm a former high school science teacher. My wife just returned back to professional teaching Monday, actually, nearby in school. So education is near and dear in our household. A lot of people have asked me why I chose to again, this is my fourth one. Quite honestly, the number one reason is because I've had a lot of constituents ask me about it. So that's what I but you don't just run because you want. So what I would like to try to help Deerfield achieve is that when school choice comes to New Hampshire, and I think eventually school choice comes to New Hampshire, I want the Deerfield Community School to be the school of choice. I don't want parents, families to send their kids here because the school's in their zip code. I want them to choose to send their children. And I think that should be a priority. 4 years ago, when I first ran for school board, I complained about the modulars. We've been talking at that point, we've been talking about the modulars for years, and we've done nothing. And here we are, 3 years later, and the modulars are still out there. And well, the school board started 2 years ago to take a fresh look at demographic studies and what the future is. That process is going so slow. The progress seems almost imperceptible. Our kids deserve better than the modulars out there. We need a school board that's going to make that a priority. And that's one of the things I've run on the last 3 years, and I'll run on it again. We had about 30 seconds, that goes quick. I'd like to see schools a bit more involved in the budget. They get presented a budget by the administration, they ask a few questions, they discuss it on a few meetings, and they pass it on to the NBC. Direct student services should be a priority. We should be bringing department heads into the budget hearings to make sure, at the school level, to make sure we're fully funding direct student services in the budget. So with that, I'd ask for your vote on March 12th.
Thank you. Mr. Oxnard.
Good evening, thank you to the PTO for putting this together. And all of you for showing up. I have been on the board for one term. I've been in town with my family for 12 years, and this last 3 years I've been on the board for my first term. During that time, we have, I think, done a lot of great things. There's still a lot to do, but when I came on 3 years ago, one of the concerns we talked about was the communication issues that came up in the last couple hour with the select board and the town candidates, where we were talking about the same idea of communication. How do we get the idea? How do we get our ideas, and how do we get ideas from the town? How do we improve that? That was the same conversation we were having 3 years ago when I ran last night, and I think that was the way that we spread our ideas and the events that are happening in the school board. We do go to the school, we go through the face-to-face, we use the forum, we use the bridge to the school. So there's a lot of chances that we're able to capitalize on. We have taken a look at the curriculum in the school. We've taken a look at supporting the teachers in their work to take the award that they won a couple years ago. Positive notes last year. It was a great recognition of a lot of great teachers that came in at that point when Paul retired. But we've taken that and supported their work in looking more closely at what the school has been doing, what the has been. We've taken a look at the building. The building, when I came on 2 years ago, had, I think, started to show some signs of age, and so there were certainly some maintenance to chip away at. Before just jumping into projects, we did an engineering study to identify what those projects would need and how to prioritize and to spend our money wisely. We've made some progress with that. We've made some progress with transportation. The question of how do we get our students moving around this town as efficiently as we can. The discussion about high school is coming up because our contract conference is So there's a lot of work that we've done. I'm proud of a lot of the things we've done, and there's still a lot to do. Hopefully, continue that.
Thank you. Mrs. Thompson.
Please stand. I'm gonna bring my board up too. Before you start cutting me, thank you everyone for coming. Anyone who's still watching this, if it's also put anywhere else on social media, if you're still listening at this point, thank you so much, because every person who invested time to be here and so for specific things, so to listen to the word. But my game of plug before you start timing me, at the back of the room, the 8th graders have a fundraiser, and there's lots of really wonderful stuff left, and I'll disclose I'm a parent of an 8th grader, so please, buy baked goods. So my name is Leila Thompson. I have lived here since December of 1999. I have one child. He has attended Deerfield Community School from kindergarten on. So as the community, member of the community, I have watched firsthand the experience that I have had, or my child has had, since kindergarten through now 8th grade. And we are 4 months away from the end of Deerfield Community School for my family. I, like every other person sitting at the table, when I was in college, I did an internship at a very large high school. I did not choose to go on to become a teacher. At least 8 of my immediate family members are, my sister-in-law, my nieces, nephews, etc. I did, however, spend 11 years prior to working for myself, working for Fleet Bank, then Bank of America. Fleet, I spent 5 years as a corporate trainer. I feel so much more comfortable standing up. I also brought a visual, which I'm going to pull out in a minute, because that goes back to who and what I am. I then spent 6 years as a manager. So I managed my staff. I expanded a budget from a very large bank. At that point, Bank of America had 5,500 branches, and I was one of many managers who had to be responsible for everything that happened within my building. So we were audited at least once a year, 4 times a year. Very least my boss was in, and they looked at what I was doing and used payroll. I had to manage the budget, and I was not able to go over it just because they had very large coffers. They kind of held me to that. Much like this school, I don't think most people understand when you pay your taxes, almost 85% of the tax money goes into school. And we have 5 people who are responsible for creating that budget and should be helping manage that budget. As a school board member, you have a vote on what comes in front of you. You also have the ability to sort of put forth things and set goals for the school. Here's my usual about where I see. You can't bring forth and push anything through, but after 9 years of watching this school, and there's been a few things, you want to hold it up like this. And I'll start in the middle. One of the things that drives me crazy about Deerfield is I feel like we need a very clear vision of what's our definition of success. Where do we want our students to be as far as proficiency in math and reading? School involvement, graduation rate, these are all things that the Department of Education looks at, but where does Deerfield really want to be? Sometimes we have these big lofty goals, or I don't see how they can even be measured, and it drives me bananas. One of the biggest things that I've watched is conflict resolution, or the lack of it. Is that it?
That's done.
Okay, is it over?
It is. I'm sure people will be interested to review that afterwards.
All right, I'll be right here.
Okay. Mrs. O'Brien.
Hi, I'm Julie O'Brien. I'm running for re-election for school district clerk. My great-great-grandmother lived in Deerfield, so my grandmother spent a lot of summers here as a child. I heard lots of stories about that. Anyway, my husband and I have been here for 18 years and have 3 children. All 3 boys have gone through Deerfield Community School. 1 is in college and the 2 are at Concord High School. I was asked a few years ago, 6 years ago, to run for the position. I thought it'd be a good way to help out and do something, become involved in the community. I don't know, but I'll give it to you. I have business management degree from Plymouth State. Used to be Plymouth State College, and I went to Plymouth State University. I've worked for an accountant. I've worked as an administrative assistant for International for a large company in New York. Finance director, been a board certified optician for 9 years, 1 after 2 years. This is my 14th year graduate school bus in year 2, and my 6th year educator. So I have lots of different hats. But I've always had this fear of being involved in my community and volunteering in high school, student government, college student government, and tradition boards, commissions, all that sort of stuff. So I just wanted to keep doing that now, and I help out where I can with students, my children's school, wherever they need me, or the activities they're involved in. I just like to do it because I like helping out and being here and doing what we're doing, and it's a good opportunity for me to be involved in another way in the community. I appreciate your vote.
Thank you. Okay, so that wraps up our introductory opening. Does anybody have a question for one or more of the candidates? Yes, right here.
And I'm an 8th grader at the school right now. A biggest concern, not just for me, but for a lot of my peers, is choices for high school next year, because I have a lot of friends who have actually applied to go to program and gotten in, but can't go because they are not being paid for it. And I was wondering what your opinion is on that and on giving the students other choices in high school, not just programming or not just
Thank you. We'll start at this end.
Well, I mean, that is such a difficult question, and I'm glad you asked it. And I know that when I was working here, we used a lottery system at that point to try to improve some parents, but we have not. But I understand that system is not in place anymore, and that there isn't any choice. The tricky part comes is that we contract with the school and when we contract with the school, we don't have our own high school, we're contracted to send X amount of students to that school. And so the contracts that we write with the school, like for instance with Concord, we have to abide by that contract. And Co-Brown always presented a challenging problem because they have there's an acceptance policy. So you can apply, but it doesn't necessarily mean you'll be accepted. And what we tried to do is we tried to create a position. There was a time where we actually had 3 students and September came around. We didn't have a place for them to go to high school because of how things played out. And the way that the board has decided to do that is to try to know their exclusive contract with high school. So I don't have, I know that's not a satisfying answer, but that's the rationale that I understand that's behind it.
Thank you. Mr. Burville.
Mr. Clark, thank you for the question. So the short answer is not much. The Concord High School contract goes to 2024, but it could be ended or renegotiated with 2 years' notice. I wasn't here during the lottery system, but a lot has changed. And one thing that has changed is there's more high schools in the southern tier now than there were then, and they're declining in order. Other than Deerfield, virtually every other school in the southern tier is reducing population. And that's why Co-Brown has reached out to Deerfield. They're hungry for students. It's my opinion, we need to start working on the next high school contract now. Because if we look at the rate we're getting rid of modulars, we don't want to wait for 2022, 2023, because we'll be forced into a box. We should start looking at it now. We can have a contract with a school that says we will send you some percentage significantly less than the 95 to 98% we currently contract. If there's a negotiation, if there's pushback, you say, okay, well, we'll ask families to declare what's your intention, something to rate, not necessarily binding, but to give budgetary numbers to whatever that receiving school is. Because of the Croydon bill passed last year, right, we don't have a high school, so we can tuition our children wherever we want other than a religious school. And we should renegotiate that contract with Concord to provide the choice and the opportunity, not to say kids have to go here, there, or somewhere else, but to provide the opportunity. There is no one school that's going to meet the needs of all the children in one family. And that's something that we should be working for. That's one of the biggest reasons I'm running this school. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Mr. Oxner.
So as you heard, the part of the issue that we have in front of us is the contract that kind of locks 95% or 90% of our kids to go to that school. So short of renegotiating that, that's what we are stuck with right now. The idea of school training is a great one. I think it's the idea of having, I mean, as you look around the towns around us, there are many different schools and many different personalities and flavors. And I work at a school nearby, and I've seen plenty of others. There's a lot of good options for students to apply and matches their academic personality. The other piece of this that makes it so complicated, however, is the cost. And so, while Co-Brown, I've heard from a lot of people, it's a great place, and people get excited when they are accepted there and they want to go there. There is a price tag that goes along with that, and that price tag is different than where our current students are currently. So in solving this problem, even though school choice is a great idea, and ideally I think many students would benefit from that, the portion of our town that's footing the bill is not necessarily made up by those students, unfortunately. Really, we have a lot of taxpayers in this town, and they are concerned about the cost of it. So if you were to take it to the extreme and say any student can choose where they want to go, there are some schools in the nearby area that are cost way more than that. So are we all going to start to pay that elevated cost to allow that choice, or are we going to stick with this idea where it may not be the perfect school for every student, but as a town, it's something that we can get a very good education for at a very reasonable price. Two sides.
Thank you. Thank you. Mrs. Thomas.
Good question. I think that anyone who's ever gone and listened to or paid attention to budget, it's clear that even if people don't speak up, we're not sending all of our eighth graders to Concord, because when there's surplus that was allotted for tuition costs and it doesn't get used, which means we've had students who are not going to Concord for one reason or another, whether parents have chosen to send them to a private school because they don't agree with Concord, or they're going to a charter school. I think that this is a subject that needs to be talked about. And I don't think there is an immediate solution to it, but I think that we need to be open-minded that possibly we will need to explore a different solution. Because Concord, while it is a great school and it fits the needs of many, it doesn't fit the needs of all of our children. That doesn't mean I'm advocating open it up and go anywhere. There are towns around us who have a contract with two schools, being Co-Brown and being Dover. So children don't have a choice. That smaller school is maybe nearer, closer to what they came from, or the larger school has a lot more opportunities. Not throwing out that we're suddenly going to go to Dover. I'm just giving you an example. I think this is a subject that a lot of people really care about. I think it should be something that is transparent. It should involve more than just the eighth grade class. It should involve more than just parents and students, because, as Mr. Oxnard just said, everyone pays for this. So we have to look for a solution that meets everyone. But I think it's something that should be transparent and discussed. And I think enough has been said that it's not the perfect solution we have right now. Sending everyone to one, because we come from a small school and one size all doesn't fit. We don't have a school.
Thank you. Any other questions for our candidates? Yes. Please state your name and address.
Sophie Hopkins, Raymond Road. So last year, I unfortunately had to leave school due to multiple issues we found on how things were being managed. And I wanted to know what you thought some of the positions
Mr. Rubel, would you like to start?
Thank you for the question, Ms. Hoffman. I have to admit, I don't know if it's a fair situation, so I can't speak to that. Nor might I say that necessarily. The current school board has stated as a policy that they operated on 40,000-foot pier, but they don't want to micromanage. And I agree, micromanaging is here, and 40,000 feet are big. So, to me, 40,000 feet is not out of pocket. So we basically delegated a lot of authority to our administrative staff to run the school, and the school board is simply responding to what's brought to it. Personally, I think the happy medium is somewhere between the micromanage level and the 40,000-foot view. Of the constituents that asked me to run again, was to run for a fourth time. You know, it's no secret that you can say, well, why are you bothering again, right? I'm bothering again because people have asked. And there is a level of discontent amongst parents and students that I don't think is fully expressed, and I don't think it's fully dealt with. And I think it needs to be. The school board is going to do next year what it did this year, and the reason it did what it did this year is because that's what it did last year. It's just that there's underlying truth to it. So there is this sort of repetition. We need a school board that's more active in the management of the school board.
Thank you. Mrs. Clipper.
Well, I think that question from like a lot of different angles. There's a parent angle, and I think one thing that's important is parents need to be able to feel if there is, they have a challenge and they're not getting the answer that they want from the level of management that they're seeking. They feel like they can be able to be heard by the next level up, and that may end up entailing coming from the school board. I also understand, having been an administrator, that the reason that you get hired as an administrator is to work really hard, you get trained, and you have expertise in how to manage the day-to-day operations of the school. And so, from that perspective, it is really detrimental to a process if a board has their hands in every bit of the day-to-day operation. So I think that the key to this is that parents need to feel like they're being heard. A, they need to feel like they're being listened to. They need to feel like they're being heard. And see that they have an avenue or a pathway. For instance, if they don't get the answer that they want, so for instance, and I well, in writer particulars, but if you didn't get the answer that you want, that you would have an avenue or a pathway and feel comfortable being able to bring those challenges that your circumstances face to a board that would listen.
Mrs. Thompson.
So my board's coming back up because this is exactly our conflict resolution. And please don't take this the wrong way. I've been looked at and told, we hear you. And it is the most demeaning statement as a parent when you need to be more than heard. Because your child, like their education, what is setting them up for their future, is on the line. And you face people who are doing nothing to help you. And there are serious consequences to that. These are children. My son's in the same grade as Ms. Hoffman, so you were 4 when I first met you. Every year that my child has attended this school, from kindergarten on, I have talked to parents who have removed their children from the school. Whether they have chose in kindergarten to pull them out and homeschool, to go to a charter school, to go to a private school, to move. And they live right now in Candia, and they live in Northwood, so they did not move for a job to go further. They've got the same commute they had beforehand. And what they didn't have in the process of trying to remain in Deerfield and be part of this community was an appropriate conflict resolution. And we do need conflict resolution. We need not just to be heard, but there needs to be actionable steps that can be taken. What about Patriots game? You don't see Bill Belichick in those instances, right? Yes, you see him right on the field. And I'm not saying micromanage, but when you're a leader, you do have to be able to come down, and if a problem reaches the school board and it isn't in administration, it needs to be resolved. And that comes from the role thing, with having better organization and consistency across the grade, from across the grade, so all of kindergarten, all of first grade, from one grade to the next, and for all students. So we need to hear people. We need to hear people who are saying things that you don't like, because that's important.
Thank you. Mr. Oxnard.
There has been a fair amount of change over the past couple of years, precipitated obviously by retiring, but there's been some other many other changes as well. I mentioned earlier that there, in that year that Mr. Rivera retired, the school won an award, was recognized for being the K-8 school in the state, which I think was a big deal, and rightfully so. A lot of people were very pleased about that. And I think the school certainly deserved it. At the same time, however, as some other candidates have mentioned just now, there have been the community. You can't help live in this community and not hear that people talk, parents are concerned, students are concerned, and those kinds of concerns get back to people across the board. So, one of the important changes in the past couple of years is that rather than receiving this award and resting on our laurels, the school did jump in and say, well, we recognize that, yes, we're doing well, but we can learn from it. And so we, the administration, with the support of the administration, we brought in a third party called and what they did was they conducted a study where they talked to parents directly, they talked to administration, faculty, they talked to everybody in the school, and they developed an outside perspective of what was going on as they did the summer. And then from there, they came back with recognitions and commendations that, yeah, the school is doing a lot of great things, but there's always ways to get better. So they came back with those. I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but that study has given us a lot of work, a lot of ways to go forward, ideas to discuss what does education in 21st century and how do we best do that for our school.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Yes.
Hi, I'm Pretorius, Bluefield Road. As a school board member, I know we just renegotiated the teacher's contract. Time for this question like that didn't happen. In your opinion, what is the best way to attract and retain top teaching talent in the district?
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Thompson, we'll start with you on this.
I think the answer kind of goes, it's not just Deerfield, it's not just teaching, any industry. In order to attract the people that you want to work with, one, you need to be clear on who you are. Two, you have to provide a workplace where they want to come, where they feel valued, respected. I think those are all sort of canned answers. I don't think the simple answer is always salary, where absolutely you need to be able to live. Being paid is one of those, I get it whether they get paid every other week, twice a month, every month, that's the proof. But when you spend your time here, when you invest your life, when you invest yourself, you need to feel like you matter, you're important, you're heard. And back to my conflict resolution, that doesn't just say for parents and it doesn't just say for students, it says for staff. And that is something where they have negotiated a contract right now, which is something that'll be on ballot. I urge everyone to go home and read it, because there are absolutely things on that go right to conflict resolution. So I think having a clear structure of the environment you work in, one that you feel valued and respected, but you also feel fair, you understand, and that you feel like you can solve issues and move forward.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Oxnard.
Feeling valued is a key part of that, I agree. And that can come through in many different ways. One of them is clearly salary. And so that is certainly a way that many of us, if you don't work in the school environment, in a town environment, or in the private sector, that clearly know that asking for a raise and what that entails, that certainly is a way that employers can recognize and make employees feel valued. Another very important, if not perhaps as important, piece of that is the structure of the organization. And so this kind of connects to this idea of, is the board supposed to operate at a 40,000 foot level, or is the board supposed to be right here in the building or not? I personally think that the board's job is to find, hire, attract as much as possible administrators, people that work well in this building, that share our vision, share our goals, and then step back and let them do what they're hired to do. And if there's guidance or suggestions necessary, then step in. But essentially, you hire these people, hopefully you hire the best people you find, and let them do their job. And in creating that, and allowing that to happen, then what you do is you show that discipline, and then they step up to it, or when they don't, but ideally, although I'm not, they step up to it. And you'll see that with that recognition, with that that support from the board or from whoever, that leads to some great progress at the school.
Mr. Burke.
Thank you for the question, George. It's an interesting one. Not only do I know that we do, I know that we do. I know that we do because of the reports that I hear back. I know that we do because we have self-imposed very low turnover. That is to say, most of the people we hire, we retain. And in fact, we retain people in Deerfield for a very long time. So that's what we do. One of the advantages to not being on the school board is one can have a very candid, off-the-record conversation with the teaching staff, so long as they know that they have confidence that what they say doesn't go very far. Our teachers are burnt out, and they're burnt out on changes. We have changed assessment, we have changed curricula, we have changed to the PACE model, we have changed the PACE grading. And if you speak to teachers, they're getting burned out. You cannot sustain those types of grades change, and that's how you burn teachers out. So the other thing is the feedback that I get, and it's anecdotal. I certainly have not talked to everybody on the staff. The degree of confidence in competency ed is the grading system is not preferred by parents. It doesn't seem to be preferred by teachers. I think that we need to reevaluate what we're doing, what we're requiring our teachers to do to have that unproven model continue in Deerfield. And I think that's a lengthy, involved discussion we really need to start to have.
Thank you. Mrs. Quebec.
I think you know that I had the opportunity to be in this space over and over again with yourself. The most important thing to do is to hire quality people, and then the second most important thing to do is to keep them. Once they demonstrate, they have demonstrated that they are able to do things with your children, then you keep them. And it is important that you pay them well, and everybody knows that. Everybody who has a job knows that, your job is your life energy. You give your life energy over, and you get this monetary thing in return. And so, I think the other thing is that, and so kind of coupled with that, is to have strong leadership, right?
right? To really have strong leadership in your administration, because your administration kind of helps to set the tone. And there is a value here. There's been a value here ever since I moved into town. Teachers go above and beyond their call of duty regularly, always. And that's because they feel a sense of commitment. There's everybody that I know who has come to the school, many people talk about a sense of commitment to the kids and how teachers are committed to making sure that different learning styles are met and working hard to try to create real life experiences and hands-on projects. So I think creating a sense of collaboration amongst teachers is important, and historically there has been a very collaborative kind of atmosphere here. Teaching's hard, and so teachers need each other, and I think those things are important.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Rob Brown, Church Street. My question is regarding the 10% of the current contract for Concord High. What is the policy for the current, the allowable 10% to go to other high schools? And what is your opinion of that to be able to go to other high schools, the approval process? That'd be the entire.
We're going to start with Mr. Oxman.
What was the requirement?
What is the current approval process, and what is your opinion of the approval process of going forward with that under this current contract?
So the 10% number, it changed a little bit recently, a couple years ago, when there was a renegotiation with Congress. I think it changed from 5% to 10%. At the same time, or at a similar time, a separate policy changed. So there's two little pieces. One is the contract with Congress, which is that number. The other piece is a separate policy which says how do we choose or select these students who don't have to go to Concord. I personally, I'm excited if I get to the conversation. There are a couple different routes by which that can happen. One is sort of an educational hardship route where you, the student, can demonstrate that your needs are not being met by Concord. And the other policy used to be what's called a lottery, but essentially a random choosing of students to fill out that extra. And then there's also IEPs, students with IEPs, if it is determined that that's an appropriate educational course of action, then those students would not be accommodated if there was no school. It changed the lottery approach, or the random selection approach did change a couple years ago, and the rationale behind that was that I think the board at the time, I wasn't on the board at the time, but the board at the time felt like there was more students who wanted to go somewhere else than they were responsible, essentially. And so this random selection of these students inevitably created animosity, created competition, created a situation that was not conducive to the students in 8th grade getting along and having a great year as their left kids go. My personal feeling is that I would like to look at that and come up with a way of finding an answer. However, if there's more students than we have space for, is it going to inevitably lead to negativity? And I don't avoid that as much as possible.
Thank you. Mr. Verville.
The policy is the policy. Basically, slots are consumed by those who can demonstrate manifest hardship. That's a legal criteria, and I can guide you to the state regs that will help you navigate that. That's a path you want to pursue. We talk about getting people involved in this town. It was getting on to a year and a half ago that the school board held a listening session about the high school. That was the best attended public forum we have had in the 10 years, almost 10 years that I've lived in Deerfield. And my judging of the sentiment of that meeting was what I'm hearing again, both from our students and from our parents. People want more options of where they can send their child. The only way to open that up, 10% for a class of 55 kids. The only way to open that up would be to negotiate the high school contractor to decide to do that, we have to have other spaces that would be possible to send kids. We need to start looking around other schools to see what the availability is, right? There are schools that are begging for high school kids. We got a really good price in Concord because they're desperate for students and they need tuition dollars. Make no mistake about it, we should be in the driver's seat in our next contract negotiation. We should be starting now. People want choice, we should give them that choice, and the only way is dealing with that contract. And as far as tuition, we can allow kids to go around. The state and the courts have ruled that the districts can pay up to what their contract amount is. If parents want to send their kids to another school that costs more, they can do that if the parents are willing to make up the difference. There's legal precedent all over the state for that. So it adds no hardship to the town financially.
Thank you. Mrs. Cooper.
I honestly say I probably do not know enough currently about that situation to speak on it. In all transparency, I have lived through it a lot of different ways, and none of them have been ideal. When my kids first got into school, we had students that were going to probably 5 or 6 different high schools at the time. And that created an awful situation because the students were applying to get into those schools, and it turned into kind of like this mini college acceptance. Did you get in? Did you get in? I didn't get in. And so after that particular situation, we went to a lottery system to try to create some more equity. And as Mr. Burwell said, that also ended up, because we ended up having more students wanting to go elsewhere and not enough slots for them to go, created hard feelings and difficulty. And so I don't have a solution for that, but I do know that it's important for us to continue to look at that and to try to figure out what would be the best, is in the best interest of our students. And then their transportation piece also is a question mark that is needed in my head, because then we've got to get there.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Thompson.
So going back, your question was about the 90 to the 10%. So how the selection process was for the 10%. Am I hearing that correct?
It was how the selection process was and your opinion of that going forward.
Okay, so I'm going to put back on my mom hat because this is I'm an 8th grader. I'm very vocal about it. I attended the meeting and it was well attended. And Mr. Burville just alluded to. I am not shy. I stood right up there and I asked about that 10% of students because, and again, I'm not shy. I'm wearing my mom's hat and my son is not shy either. My son is not a typical student. He does have an IEP. He's an average kid, and he is definitely somebody that I have gone through some of a different set of learning for, to advocate for. And I asked them to please be transparent with that 10% and what the process is, what the deadline is. Transparent to me means you make it public. You don't put it, it's somewhere in the policies, and you kind of have to find it, and you have a deadline. I had an incredibly difficult time negotiating for my son on this, so I do not think it was done well. I do not think it is functioning properly. I think it is something that we do have. It's a small town, and you end up hearing who is and who is not going to Concord. You end up hearing who has been given one of those 10% and who isn't. And you hear it as a parent, and I don't think it was done well. I don't think it was transparent. I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and I think there is a lot of room to have a discussion and take in sort of a broader approach to this.
Thank you. More questions? Yes.
So I was wondering if you would not only communicate with that
but also communicate with the students and see what their issues are with the school and see what they would like alternatively say to benefit more.
Thank you. Start with Mr. Verville.
Ms. Dixon, thank you for the question. So, the number one stakeholder in the Deerfield Community School are the students in the Deerfield Community School, right? Everything that we do as parents, as citizens, school board members, as teachers, as administrators, as support staff, all of that should go to give the most appropriate, the best education we possibly can for every child in the district. I would never turn a deaf ear to any constituent, whether they're old enough to vote or not. And yes, there should be a method and a means to hear from children. I have one right now, right? One is called Kelsey and one's called Elizabeth, and I give them earful, 4 or 5 nights a week. But certainly, if students have needs or wants that are going unmet, if they don't feel there's a mechanism to communicate that out to try to get redress for their priorities, that certainly is an issue. And that's something we should take very, very seriously. Schools exist to educate children, right? That's why they're here. So everything we can do to bring more value to our students, that should be the plan.
Mrs. Clifford.
That's an awesome question, and I'm really happy that you asked that question. And I would hope that if somebody went back and surveyed the students that I passed, that they would say that I was a champion for student voice. I had the great privilege of helping to develop something called Community Council when I worked at South Union High School, which is actually a body of 45 students in addition to a smaller portion of teachers and administrators that actually help the schools set policy. I think that having student voice is really important. I think teachers getting feedback from the students about how things are going, and students having an avenue, feel like they have an avenue to get their voices heard is really important. So I would hope that students feel like they have that voice. If they don't, I would advocate that we have more student voice in this.
Thank you. Mrs. Thompson.
To answer that question, sometimes I think back to in my working world in corporate America, I spent so many hours at this discussion where we would, we'd be asked a question and it would be that time you could give feedback and hope that you were actually safe in saying it and wasn't the case. And I think there was a lot of value in that. But as a mom, I can also say you can almost guess if we were to have a listening session, which I think is really important, with the students that you would get who would come. And you want to be able to listen to everyone. So I think that's a question that is critical. You should be listening to the people that everybody should be heard for. And if that should be everyone gets a voice, not just people we traditionally hear. So I think that would be something that needs to happen in multiple ways and be a little bit creative. Because there's been times that I've wondered about things and gone, I don't understand why this happens. And I don't shop at Target very often in Concord, but there was one day I was shopping at Target in Concord and I had 3 different people from Deerfield approach me. And these people had kids. And it was really funny to have someone who's a little bit older go, hey, have you ever wondered about this? And this girl just randomly in Target gave me an answer to something that I had been pondering. And I was very approachable enough for her to come and talk to me. So I think that people who come the business have a lot of value to add.
Thank you. Mr. Oxnard.
I have 2 thoughts about that. One is that our meetings are, despite their sparse attendance, our meetings are open to everybody. So we have had students come in and hear us during since they are on this board. And that's a great opportunity for students to come and listen. And then there's this, little thing called the internet as well. A lot of us have, we all have email addresses, but we also are now more and more on Facebook or whatever. Not that, at some point, if there are other routes and other media or tools, we're very contactable, just as being members of the community. And whether you're a student, whether you're an adult or parent or anything. The other thought is that at the school I teach high school, and at the board there is a spot on the board for a high school student. It's usually a junior or senior. Meetings get pretty late, but there's a process by which somebody's elected to apply, and a high school student comes and sits on the board. I'm not exactly. I don't think they have a full vote when it comes to policies, but it's in terms of being a conduit for the creation that the students are feeling and would like to share with the board directly to the board, and then also from the board to talk to peers and other people who are supposed to tell them this.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mrs. O'Brien.
Typically Sweden here, just I don't take a position on that, I can see the notes. But for a little history on what you were saying, or asking about with the Concord and the application to other schools. About 6 years ago when my son was oldest son was in 8th grade, it was you write a letter, so it wasn't just some kind of having, hey, I want to we had another reason in explaining that why this you thought this would be good for you. And then literally names were pulled out of a top hat at the meeting. And it was random. And some kids are still, and that was good in one way because they weren't necessarily competing with each other in the manner they had been when we first moved to town and they were 4 or 5 high school. And that didn't really foster necessarily the community feeling, the warm fuzzy stuff that everybody likes about it. A lot of people like that, but so, and then some of the students that are still enrolled in the school ground now, their siblings, they were kind of grandfathered in, so some of their siblings, their names were chosen out 5 years ago, and they've been in school staggered somewhat, so that's like one of the reasons we still have some students that do go to the school ground and see in the budget, is their older siblings went there or would have been enrolled there previously, or while they are going to attend the school ground. Part of the thing with the Concord contract also was the transportation piece. When Concord became the high school of record for the town of Deerfield, the town was then obligated to provide this transportation, which years prior, when we were sending students to many different high schools, there wasn't guaranteed transportation for all of the high school students. There were wait lists to get onto a bus, and hopefully get a seat, and you paid a fee to have your kid ride that bus to high school. So by consolidating to one high school, when I started driving the bus here 14 years ago, we had 10 different buses, and they were a lot shorter. But when Concord became the school of record and they wanted to be able to provide the transportation so that all the students could get to school without any type of hardship, they pulled buses from the elementary school runs to help service those students. And right now there's 3 buses that run to the high school. But anyway, so I just wanted to give you a little bit of history on that and encourage everybody to get involved, show up to meetings, watch them on TV, read the notes, ask respectful, well thought out questions, and vote.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes.
Hi, Christina Pretori, Bloomfield Road. Given that 2 of you will be on the board if Article 2 fails, and we have to go back to the table with the union, what would you see differently? What would you do differently with the contract? There was some conversation about the steps and all of those kinds of things that were delivered in session, and I just wanted to know a little bit about your position on an ideal contract.
No. I guess I would view responding to that as optional. So why don't we start with Gigi? If you would like to respond.
So, in my mind, an ideal contract really has enough length to it that people aren't anxious that as soon as that contract is enacted, we're back at the renegotiation table again.
And I don't have a magic number for that, but I have seen a trend that those time periods have become longer. Historically, if we negotiated 1 and 2 year contracts, I've seen the school across the state start to look at negotiating longer contracts. The steps are tricky because we're working hard to try. If you go back to the question you had about hiring and retaining teachers, and I know, I recognize that we haven't had people fleeing from Deerfield, but I also know that it's still really important to recognize and value people by the salaries they provide for them. And so, in terms of going back, I think maybe a place to look is the increments of how quickly those steps rise. But again, I haven't necessarily studied that yet, and I would need to look into that more.
Mr. Burke.
Thank you for the question. So, there is no perfect contract. There's no perfect contract on either side. If the contract fails with valid clause, then both parties have to return in good faith to the negotiating table and to suggest what one would put on the table before such negotiations are entered into, I think is atypical at best and probably potentially misguided at worst. If the contract fails, I think it's safe to say that it's too much for people to avoid. What a second bite of the apple looks like would have to be arrived at with the union. I don't think you want to go too much beyond that at this point and allow those negotiations to take place in good faith at the system cost. I know it sounds like a hedgy answer, but in my opinion, it's the safest way to proceed.
Mr. Oxnard.
And it is very difficult. But I would say that based on the discussion that's happened, it's been out there. And so people have had it. And what I've seen from comments that I've seen from feedback is mostly about the steps, the increases in salary, and obviously that's part of the pocketbook, so that's what people in town are paying attention to. I think there's a lot of great things in there, and I think a lot of that both sides did a lot of work to agree on. But if it fails, I think that most people would be looking at the chair of the NBC spoke to all the leader session about some raised some questions that I echoed some questions that I'd seen basically in various places. And so I know that those concerns are there. But as to what would happen after negotiation, let it go. But if it gets voted out,
You were on negotiating.
Mrs. Thompson.
Go like this. So the first two parts, one has to fail and the other one has to pass. So in the event that does happen, I think it was a very interesting warrant article to put on the ballot, in that it doesn't create hard, fast no, that it does have that potential. I think the best thing that the school board can try to learn from it, and again, it's not fully up to the school board what the contract is that's put forth, is to try to say, why did this happen? And do a root cause analysis and try to come up with something that is essentially, if you're going to put in the effort to have yet another deliberative session, which that's what it would entail, and then another voting day, which is not, look at how much time and preparation it takes to do it once. So to do that a second time, I think that there has to be a lot of thought put into, and you definitely have to learn from why it didn't, or try to do root cause analysis to find out why it didn't. I will also say anything that is in the contract when they fail, people are not failing it on non-monetary issues. You can read it and realize that there are both monetary and non-monetary aspects of it. And generally they look at it and how does it impact the tax rate for the bottom line. And those are more concerns and things that can be implemented so that it's not a complete failure if we in fact have it voted down.
Okay, thank you. I just want to note for everybody, it's 8:35. I don't want to circumvent the questioning or the conversation because I think it's really good. So, just want to let people know. Are there any other questions? Burning questions you have for any of these candidates?
Could I add one thing, point of information to article number 3 and the question about if article 2 is defeated?
Yes.
During the school deliberative session, our question was asked, was that just one vote? Or how that special meeting would be, how that would be, what would be, how it was conducted, what it would look like. And it would, please correct me if I'm wrong, so how it was explained by the legal representative from the school district was that there would be a deliberative session similar to what we do in the spring, and then a vote within, I believe, 2 or 3 weeks following that deliberative session for folks to vote for the ballot and pass the Just to add some clarification to that.
The same rules apply in terms of timing of the 2 sessions. So within a certain window, the first one, the second, the vote would happen. Other questions for our candidates?
Mr. Moderator?
Yes, Mr. Burke.
I'd like to answer the question that was asked on the municipal side, and that's how do we get more people to run so we have a full ballot? It's something I think I have a decent answer, and there's no objection I can share.
Okay. I think that's fine.
So,
and everybody else can chime in to the extent that they.
the tact I've taken to talk to my friends, my neighbors, and strangers in town, and hint, and ask, and beg, and plead for them to get involved, to step up, put their name on the ballot. The number one answer is I've never run before, I don't know anything about the job. Well, I can tell you what, when I went for open space committee, I had no open space experience. When I ran for trustee of trust fund, I had no trustee experience. When I went for the budget committee, when I got appointed to the budget committee, because I got appointed before elected, I had no experience. Everybody that serves in public life at one time never had an experience. The 2 biggest questions I got is what does the job entail and how much time does it take? I've already reached out to Ms. Roberts, town clerk. She's going to try to start gathering that information to make it available on the website so people can see sort of a job description, selectmen, or supervisory checklist, and what the rough time commitment is so that people can be more informed. But it's up to you guys to talk to your friends, neighbors, strangers, at sporting events, at musical events, at community events, and encourage others to participate. Ask the people that are already serving what it's like. They'll give you a good, honest answer. Put your name on the ballot, get involved. It's an absolutely fantastic experience. You can meet a lot of people. It's good for our community.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to comment on that same topic? Okay. Any other questions for our candidates? All right. Hearing none. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for that. And on your way out, stop by the 8th grade next table.